Hey, what's up guys? I'm Mr. Chris with Infotainment.com. Today I'm in our 2022 Ford Bronco Big Ben Edition. We're going to be doing a Sync 4 12-inch upgrade on our factory 8-inch screen. So we're going to be pulling all that stuff out. We're going to show you how to do it. The install is pretty simple, but you do have to pull the airbag, so you're going to want to pay attention. Let's get into the install. Alright, so I'm in the passenger seat of our Bronco, and I just wanted to run over a few things. Where we're going to start with this install is basically removing the whole top section of the dash here, and this bottom section, as well as airbag, this whole radial bezel. Now, when it comes to the radial bezel, there is two different color options. You got a black one like we do here, or a silver one. You're going to have to make sure you pick the right one when you order this upgrade, so you get the matching piece for your specific interior. But where we're going to start is right up top here in the center. You have your little control panel with this little pocket here. This thing pops up pretty easily. It's got some not so strong clips holding it on. Once you pop an edge up, you should be able to just snap the whole thing out of there. You can unplug that connector, set this aside. We're not going to need this for a while. And that's going to expose a T20 Torque screw. Right here, we'll pull that out. And there is quite a bit of screws that you're going to have. Having a little magnetic bowl might help you. If not, I like to just throw things either in the wireless charger area or in the cup holder or something. All right, next up is the top speaker grills on your dash. You have one on both sides. There's a little notch actually in here that helps you pop these off. If you take your panel tool and just run it down, it'll fall into where the notch is. And you can just take your pry tool, stick it up in there, and that should help you pop this up pretty easily. And once you pop that up, it'll expose a 7mm screw. There's our screw right there. And we have the same thing on the other side. All right, next up is right above the airbag area where the dash bezel says Bronco. Up underneath this ledge, you have 3 7mm actually going upwards. So to expose those, there's a little cap covering them, and they're actually on a little plastic connector, so this cap doesn't fall out. These caps are size specific, so if they do fall out, make sure they go back in that same order. Once you have it out, it'll expose a 7mm right up top here. You have 3 of these above the Bronco and 3 below the Bronco. So right below that second ledge that's above your glove box, there's 3 more of the same exact covers and screws. So pull all 6 of these out, set them aside, and we'll move on to the next step. All right, next up is on the side of your dash. You have your Bronco grab handle here. You have one on both sides. We just need to pull the 4 T30 Torque screws out, and we'll remove this handle. That just slides right out. And I see a lot of you guys removing these 2 smaller torque screws that are in here. You don't need to do that to pull this top piece off. So let me know in the comments below if you had to pull these off to get your dash off, but we don't. As you can see, if I put some rearward pressure on it, this whole thing pops out. It's completely free. We just have to move to the other side and do the same thing with the handle to get this piece off. All right, now that we have that pulled, we'll pull straight back, and now we can remove the top of our dash. All right, with the top of our dash removed, that'll actually expose 2 7mm that we'll have to remove up top here, as well as one on the very right side of the dash bezel. You have a single one right next to your AC vent. So we'll pull those 3 out. Also, be mindful of what 7mm you're pulling out that are longer and shorter, because they all go back in a specific way. And if you put a long screw where a short screw is supposed to go, you could damage something by having the screw go too far deep in there. All right, next up, we're actually going to remove our climate control and radio control housing out. And in order to get this out, on our Bronco, we have a grab handle down here. Some of you may not have this. Don't worry about this if you don't have it. But if you do have it, it's 2 T30 Torque screws. Pull those out and set that handle aside. Now that'll give us clearance to drop this down and out of the way. But to remove this, there are 2 7mm holding this on, as well as some retaining clips. You have 1 screw on the top edge underneath the glove box door. So when you drop your glove box door down, you'll expose that one screw holding this side on. On the other side, you have another screw also covered by your knee bolster. We'll go over that once we get to that side. But we'll start by pulling this side out. And that screw is right up in here. All right, and actually with your glove box in a downward position, we are gonna have to remove this to gain access to the airbag on the passenger side that we're gonna disconnect. So to do that, this glove box arm, this is the arm that slows down the travel of the glove box when you open it. You're just gonna pull this little arm upwards from that glove box. You can see it's a little notched groove in here. That'll pop the arm free. Once you have that free, you depress the two sides. The glove box will drop down, and it's just on these sort of C hooks that are on here. So once you angle it down far enough, it should just slide right out of there, and you can set this aside. That'll give you a lot of clearance to access the airbag bolts underneath. All right, next up is on the driver's side. You have that 7mm that's underneath your knee bolster. This knee bolster is just held in with clips. So if you pull towards you on both sides, this whole thing will actually just swing down and out of the way. And that is the screw that we're concerned with right there. Pull that out and we should be good to go. All right, with the two screws removed from the side of our center bezel here, we can just grab the outsides of it. And if you pull straight back, you should release all those clips pretty easily. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna unplug all of my connections back here so I can set this whole piece aside. Here we go. I'll give you a little view of the back side of our panel here. These are the three connectors that I had to disconnect. That frees up my space. All right, with that lower bezel removed, that'll give us access to the 7mm that is on our engine start stop panel. All we have to do is pull this out, and the rest is a bunch of retaining clips. Then we can just grab and pull straight back. All right, and on the back side, we can unplug our start stop switch, and we'll set this aside. All right, next up is the last two of the hidden 7mm screws that you're gonna be concerned with is underneath your airbag still, underneath that Bronco. Now that we have that engine start stop bezel, or that long skinny panel removed, that'll expose those two. So we'll have to pull these two. And now all we're left with is the 4 airbag bolts that are holding this on. Those are 8mm bolts. There's 2 on the bottom, 2 up top, as well as the airbag plug, which is also on the bottom. Now, before we get into this, you want to make sure to disconnect your battery, just so that there's no power throughout your system and you don't have any risk of prematurely popping your airbag. So we'll go ahead and pull our battery terminals, then we'll come back and pull the 4 8mm bolts out. All right, the 2 top 8mm bolts that we're looking for are right underneath the top part of the dash. To the left of your speaker, you have an opening that you can see 2 8mm bolts. Now, it'll be pretty beneficial if you have a 8mm driver with a magnet on it. If you just have a socket like I do, one of these little magnets may help you out, because after you loosen it up, you can just go in there and pull the 8mm out. All right, we got the 2 top ones out. We'll jump down underneath this, disconnect our connector, and remove the last 2 8mm bolts holding this panel on. All right, next up is underneath your glove box, looking directly up, you'll see this yellow connector. This is the connector for your airbag. Since we already removed the battery, we can go ahead and unplug this now. Not gonna worry about that. This piece is clipped in, and since we're gonna be removing that panel, we're gonna have to undo this clip. Just get your panel tool, pull back there. There's just a couple of Christmas tree type snaps that hold that in. Lastly, you have your 2 8mm bolts. We'll go ahead and pull those out as well. All right, now there's pretty much nothing left holding on our radio bezel and airbag, so we can go ahead and just yank towards the rear of the vehicle to free all these clips. Here we have our original dash piece that we're gonna have to transfer over the airbag and all of the AC vents onto our new 12-inch dash bezel. So we'll head to the bench and I'll show you how to do that now. All right, we have both of our dash bezels sitting on our countertop here. They're lined up in the same orientation. And basically what I'm gonna do is just go 1 vent at a time, transferring it over. All of the vents have 7 mils behind them. So we'll pull the 7 mils out. There's 4 in total. Swap our vent over and screw it down. We'll do the same thing with the middle vent. Alright, and the last vent, the one closest to your airbag, actually has 3 7 mils holding it on, as well as a T20 Torx right on the side. Alright, with our AC vents taken care of, now we can focus on our airbag. And the airbag has 2 7 mils on either side of it that are holding the brackets down. We'll have to pull those out first. Alright, with the 7 mil screws removed from the airbag bracket, you'll have a bunch of metal protruding clips that are going through this plastic housing that's holding your airbag bracket on. On one side you have 4 protruding clips, on the opposite side you have 5. You're going to want to focus your attention onto the side that has the 4 clips on it. You're going to want to grab a panel tool, stick it behind the clip, and push with your panel tool until that bracket actually pops out, just like that. You'll do it to the 4. Just like that, and then you can kind of twist up from that side and you should be able to free your airbag. Just like that. So you can see the side with the 5 clips. You may be able to pry from this side, but I find that it's easier to do it from the side with the 4 clips. Gives you a little bit more room to work. And once you're free on that side, you're basically twisting it out of the slots that are in this bracket here. So once you have that off, you can set your old dash bezel aside, grab your new bezel, and basically just push the airbag down until those clips pop through and you are good to go. Now we can replace our 2 7mm screws and we're ready for the radio removal. Alright, now that we got our bezel all assembled and taken care of, we can go ahead and move forward with removing our screen. This is just 4 7mm screws. And you'll want to disconnect the connector behind your screen by pressing the little tab in the middle. And we won't need to use that screen anymore, so we can set that aside. Our APIM also needs to be pulled out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to disconnect the connectors on our APIM. And then we have 3 T20 Torx screws that are holding this on. We can slide this out of there. Now we'll grab our replacement APIM and we'll slide this into place. Alright, and we can plug in all of our plugs here that we removed. And you'll want to plug in the new screen connector that comes with our kit. Snap that in. And as for your main APIM connector, ours does come with a custom pass-through harness that we'll need to attach. And this is going to give us our power feed to our 12-inch display. All right, now lastly, before you install the screen, we're gonna have to install our GPS antenna. This antenna is magnetic, and what I like to do is right above our radio, on either side, you have this little gap right here. You can actually stick the antenna to right on top of there. There's nothing above here, just plastic, so it'll get a clear sight of what it needs to see. And I'll tuck the excess wire right on the side, and I'll make sure to plug that in right at the top here. Just like that. All right, now we're ready to attach our screen. All right, now we're ready for the best part, connecting our new 12-inch screen. We'll plug in our screen connector and power feed, line it up to the old mounting holes, and screw it down. All right, our screen is mounted. Now we can pretty much just put our Bronco back together, and then we'll move forward with programming. All right, we got our screen in. We'll drop our radio bezel back in. We'll feed our airbag connector through there first, and we'll lift this into place. All right, looks good. And we'll throw these 3 7mm back in, and we'll reattach our 4 8mm bolts to secure our airbag. All right, and for the ones up top, because they're a little recessed in there, what I like to use is my little extending magnet here, and basically just to kind of feed it in the hole. It's not really going to spin on, but by carefully placing it in there, I can kind of keep it in its threaded position. That'll just make it easier for me to put my impact to it. All right, we'll put the 2 in on the bottom, and we'll reconnect our connector. All right, next up, we're gonna put those 2 7mm back in that was underneath our airbag. All right, now we can reattach that long piece with our start-stop button. All right, now we'll just grab our start-stop button connector, plug that in, and we'll snap this whole piece on here. All right, now under here we have another single 7mm, and then we'll put the 3 in that goes straight up from the bottom here. All right, now we can put our climate control bezel back in. Make sure to plug all your plugs back in from where you disconnected them. All right, we got our screw on this side. We'll throw the other one in once we jump to the driver's side. But since I'm on this side, I'm gonna throw a glove box back in and put our handle back on. All right, now for the top dash panel here, make sure to feed your wire through there before you clip this on. And once it's lined up, just give it a tap and it should be good to go. Now I'll throw in the T20 torque screw that was in the middle here. I'm gonna go ahead and plug in our connector in this little pocket here and snap this back into place. All right, now we'll throw in that 7mm that's next to our dash speaker, right there. And we can snap our grill back into place. All right, now we got the 3 screws on the top side of the airbag on the passenger side. All right, now we just need to reattach our driver and passenger side grab handles. And those are T30s, of course. We got 4 of them. All right, now we're ready to reattach our battery cables and we can move forward with programming. All right, for vehicle programming, you're going to want to consult one of our sales professionals for your specific vehicle's programming instructions. They can direct you in what direction you need to go to get your vehicle programmed for the new upgrade in your Bronco. Now that our Bronco's been programmed, we can go ahead and test out our new upgrade. All right, we got the vehicle all programmed. Let's turn it on and see how she looks. And right away you can see just how much bigger that display is. All right, we're all booted up here. You can see we have our sources, top left, AM, FM, Sirius, and we have my Android phone already hooked up to this. I'm going to show you Android Auto in a second here, as well as Apple CarPlay because it's all wireless. So if you come to here, you have your Apple CarPlay, Android Auto. Let's click on the Android Auto. You can see it pulls up pretty immediately. We'll go to my music app. I use YouTube Music. You go into your apps list. This is customizable. You can add or remove compatible apps. If a lot of you guys like to use Waze, Waze is an option in there. We can go back to our map view, full screen. And the nice thing about the Android is you got pinch to zoom, which is really nice. This is in the 3D view, so it has that kind of sloping angled view, more of a 3D image versus just that 2D flat image that you would get. You also have built-in navigation. So if you're not using your Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, you do have OEM built-in navigation into the Sync 4 module. Let's go back into apps and I'll switch it over to my iPhone and show you the difference there. I know you guys like the iPhone's layout a lot better than the Android usually. Just looks a lot more streamlined. But you come into here, you have your 3D and 2D options just like you do on the Android Auto. You can see 3D kind of tilted, 2D is more flat looking. And if you have Waze in here, you'll also have Waze on your screen as well. You can come into the settings. Everything is programmed for your vehicle, so all your factory settings that worked on your original radio will still work on this new bigger display. And I can throw it in reverse. For those of you that have 360 camera, that'll still be integrated into your radio. But you can single out individual cameras. You go that wide angle rear view. Then you got the 360 and the backup side by side. But you can just see how impressive just that rear view image is versus your OEM 8-inch screen. All right, and that wraps up this install. As you can see, it didn't take much time at all. You want to give yourself a couple hours, give or take a little bit if you're not very mechanically inclined. The hardest part of the whole thing is pulling the airbag, which as you could see, if you just follow the steps, it's really not that bad. Overall, the look of this screen in here completely changes the feel of the vehicle. It just feels so much more premium now. If you enjoyed this upgrade and you want to see more, make sure to head back to infotainment.com. Thanks for watching, guys.